So guys, welcome back to another episode, or should I say another show of the Ojiako podcast. And this will be my first episode, my first show podcast of the year 2021. Just a little bit. So happy New Year, guys! And now it's just the early hours of the 5th of January 2021. Should I say Merry Christmas? No, no need for that. Christmas is long gone. So, I will say that when and this is something that was sort of brought up on social media, especially on Instagram. When you say 2021, when you say 2021, it's almost like saying the year 2021, and are people saying as a joke or something? I don't know, but I think the point people are trying to make is that it was a horrible year, and that coming out the end of it, it's like the year one with all the lockdowns and the mess that's created around the world with the COVID-19 virus. So, adjust my mic a little bit. Hopefully that's a lot better. So look guys, just getting back on track. I hope everybody did have a good holiday, did have a good Christmas. My last podcast I uploaded I think around that Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I think it hit the Spotify server on the 25th of December. That's what I say when I log on to the app. But on YouTube it was uploaded on 24th of December. But not that it means anything, but that's when I uploaded my last podcast, and I hope that everyone did have a good Christmas and did have a good holiday. Here in the UK, we just made the best of it, best we could, because we were in a lockdown just more or less just at the last minute. Just 5 days before Christmas Day, our Prime Minister announced that we're going into Tier 4, which is more or less here by our own standards here in the UK is more or less a national lockdown if you think about it. If you're here in the UK, you'll understand. So yeah, a lot of family members couldn't be with their loved ones on that special day of the year, the 25th of December, just to see them after such a long time, because many people were isolating or quarantining. For those in the US, which is a much more American term, they had to be self-isolating at home and they couldn't see their loved ones. My younger brother, he couldn't come back to the UK from his university abroad, where he's studying medicine. So he had to, unfortunately, spend Christmas by himself, and we had to. Well, I spent Christmas here with my mum. So for me, it wasn't that bad. For him, it was pretty bleak. That was really because where he was, they had stopped flights between the UK and where he was. I'm just gonna kind of say, not sounding stupid. He's in Bulgaria studying medicine, and the Bulgarian government, they suspended all flights coming in and out of Bulgaria coming to and from the UK. So that's the reason why he couldn't be with us and be with his family on Christmas Day. That's a bummer, but yeah, that was the last year, 2020. Let's hope and pray that 2021 be far better than 2020. Although this vaccine being released now and a new strain of virus being found here in the UK and South Africa and elsewhere in the world, I was saying to my friends, wishing each other a Happy New Year. 2021 is going to be a very, very, very interesting year. That film that we were living in, quoted by Joe Rogan and some other people who say that. Like, in fact, myself, I'm going to be saying more of what I like and more of what comes to my mind, speaking my mind a lot more on my podcast. We are living in, as he said, in a fucking movie. That fucking movie is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. But this year 2021, I've got a feeling that's going to be a very, very interesting year. That vaccine that they've released, they haven't really tested it properly, and it's almost like they've rushed the whole thing. And many people, including myself, I'm not going to give too much away, but many people I know are apprehensive about taking that vaccine, regardless of your age or social class or whatever. Many people still aren't on board with the whole vaccination thing. But anyway, diving into my third podcast and my first podcast with the year 2021. I'm going to talk about Jake. First, we'll start third episode talking about Jake Paul. Recently, over the Christmas holidays, over the holiday season, Jake Paul's been calling out and insulting a lot of plenty of prominent members of the mixed martial arts community, including Dana White, who is the head. Not so much. I don't think he's the head so much anymore, but he now owns a big stake in the UFC and in the UFC fighting organization, and still, I think he is one of the members of the company that he basically has a final say on who's fighting, which athlete's going to be fighting in the company, and which fight's going to go ahead and which fight's not going to go ahead. So I write so many things down because, even though between over the 2 to 3 weeks of the holiday season, still a lot of things were happening in the mixed martial arts community. Even though no fights are happening, so a lot of things were happening. So Jake Paul, I did talk about him in my last podcast, and he's been calling out and insulting a lot of MMA athletes. He's insulted Dana White. Now, he's called out Ben Askren, and he's not necessarily insulting him as far as I can see, as far as I can tell. If there is a video or evidence of Jake Paul insulting Ben Askren, then fine. I haven't seen it yet before making this podcast. But Ben Askren did make a video saying he accepts Jake Paul's offer to fight him. Now, some other podcasters, other people who are mixed martial arts fighters, veterans themselves, they have their own podcasts and shows, like Michael Besping, Josh Thompson, and John McCarthy, who is much more of a referee than a fighter. He said that Jake Paul is being smart. He's called out these certain names, just even though he may not win the fight. And Ben Askren is a good example of this. Even though he may not win the fight, still it's a big money fight. So, I mean, let me correct in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even though a fighter loses the fight, I think they still get paid a significant amount of money. Of course, it may not be as good as what the successor as the winning fighter, and what may not be as much as what they get, but I think they still get a significant chunk of it. And even if they lose their fight, they don't look good in that sort of scenario, I think they do kind of like gain a name for themselves. People kind of, okay, we kind of know who you are, because you did this against this person, and the other person that beat you was, a really, really big person. But now you're kind of like, how do I say this without sounding stupid? But you're kind of like a somebody, you're kind of like in the books of people who, the superstar, the megastar defeated. So we kind of, even though you're not really a champion or winner in our eyes, we know who you are. You're not necessarily a nobody in this community anymore, So yeah, and I think Ben Askren and Michael Besping, someone else who I think recently on one of his videos of the podcast he does with some other guy, not offending you, but I can't remember his name, but he himself, he did say that accepts the an offer to fight Jake Paul. Now, there's something that I was gonna talk about Ben Askren, but it briefly slipped my mind for just a second ago. And there's something I talked about with my friend Charlie and some other people who confirmed it. Not Ben Askren, but Michael Besping was one of them. Ben Askren may be a very good grappler, a very good wrestler, but Ben Askren's striking is really, really, really bad. I think there was a video on YouTube that I was watching, and the narrator, I can't remember which channel it was, but the narrator said that I think Ben Askren was known to be the worst striker in the UFC history. So I think, and Ben Askren said this in his video, that it's kind of funny and amazing that Jake Paul has deluded himself so far to the extent that he thinks that he's a proper world-class mixed martial arts or combat sports performer, something like that's what he said. That's okay, fine. And this was confirmed by other people. The like Charlie that I just mentioned, he said that Jake Paul may beat him when it comes to the striking, when it comes to the wrestling and the grappling. He's got no chance at all. That Ben Askren is known for having really, really bad punches and bad jabs, bad striking. Just let me just cut it short there without sounding too stupid. But Ben Askren's striking, I think, is a weakness that Jake Paul potentially can capitalize on and beat him in the fight. What else did I say? And yeah, just to kind of round off this point, it's kind of, how do I say this? Because I get kind of worked up and hyped up about it, and then people do correct me that if there's any fight that Jake Paul's going to be involved in, or even his brother Logan Paul's going to be involved in, it will be an exhibition fight. It will not be a proper what's the word? If there's anything I get wrong, please, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please correct me in the comment section below. But if it was going to be a proper fight, as in a fight that would have a fight card, then it'll be something. How do I say? It'll be something to be taken seriously. But it's not one of those fights. I mean, Dana White said this on Jake Paul's brother's podcast, The Impulsive Show, where I was talking with Logan Paul and the other. I'm going to insult them. The other YouTube clowns that just laugh at dumb jokes and stupid things. Excuse me. Dana White said none of these guys can actually fight. No, sorry, that wasn't the Impulsive Show. That was actually Mike Tyson that was actually on that show. Dana White was actually on another podcast. I can't remember, but I saw it on YouTube. And he was just saying basically not to pay too much attention to this kid, just a YouTube clown, an internet clown. He can't fight. He's calling out all these people and insulting them. People have kind of worked out and sussed out what he's all about. He's trying to get the big money fights. He's insulted Conor McGregor and Conor McGregor's wife, calling Conor McGregor's wife a 4 in terms of her appearance and looks. Conor McGregor's probably pals beating up old men, but Dana White just said basically this is a guy that can't fight, and basically he's kind of like trying to start a market for people who want to see all these internet and YouTube clowns who can't fight. Basically, if people are dumb enough to waste their money to actually watch people like that fight, then go ahead. But in all of what he said, I have to say that even though he was one of the people that Jake Paul insulted, and what did Jake Paul call him? I think he called him. I'll write this down somewhere. I can't remember what it was, but I think Jake Paul called Dana White a bitch, basically, and I would have thought that Dana White would have said that, oh well, if you're going to insult me, you're clearly not going to come and fight my organization. But Dana White surprisingly never said anything like that. I mean, if I was Dana White, and despite all the money I have, all the wealth I have, and all the influence I have in the sport, that the popularity even now is still growing because people do enjoy watching that sort of violence. They find it entertaining. If that was me personally, I would have said, well, no, you're not going to fight my organization, even though when it comes to mixed martial arts, it's like the biggest organization that promotes the sport on earth. You're not going to fight in my organization, or because you insulted me, disrespected me, more or less. So I would have said no. But Dana White, he didn't even hint of refusing to let Jake Paul fight in the UFC. And something else that Jake Paul brought up was basically the what did he say? The pay-per-views. And I wrote this down somewhere. I wrote so much shit down. Yeah, that's it. Paul called Dana White a bald bitch, and the pay-per-views I was talking about, I said that the pay-per-views for his fight that he had with Mike Tyson sold 1.8 million, and he said that's even much higher than the UFC's biggest and highest selling pay-per-view for the year 2020. And he didn't confirm whether it was the year 2020, but he said the highest pay-per-views that the UFC had was $1.3 million, which it's not too far from $1.8 million if you agree with me, but still the pay-per-views that he had with Mike Tyson for that event was $1.8 million. And so yeah, I mean, personally, for me, again, like I said in my last podcast towards the end, Jake Paul and even his brother, they're just YouTube clowns. They're just internet clowns, and they're probably just looking for something, another avenue to get famous and to make a lot of money quick. That sort of thing. I'm surprised that Conor McGregor, who, one of the biggest and one of the best mixed martial arts fighters of all time, despite what you may think of him, how he talks and how he carries himself, and also probably gets himself into, he hasn't responded. He didn't respond. So I think the only response I saw on that they said on YouTube that he responded to was I think one of his fans was badly attacked by a dog, and he said basically, sorry about that, trying to feel too down, and you just kind of getting over that sort of bad experience that happened to you was even one of the reasons why I got back into the gym and started training, preparing for my next fight. I know you're my inspiration, but I have not seen or heard anywhere whereby Conor McGregor has responded to any of Jake Paul's insults about himself or even his wife. So, well, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, because not everybody posts what happens in their personal life on social media, so maybe something is happening and I just haven't heard about it so far before I made this podcast. Okay, so something else I want to cover is the Paige Vanzant, what I call an incident or story, but she's soon going to make her debut in the BKFC, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, if that's what they call it. If I made a mistake, please guys, again, correct me in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. Now I remember relax. Now I remember sometime last year, it was just towards the tail end of the summer season, around August, September. She did make it public that I think she was leaving the UFC. Either her contracts had expired, or maybe they weren't going to renew her contracts. This is on another podcast by Josh Thompson and John McCarthy. It was like a snippet that was taken from it, but Josh Thompson was saying something along the lines of, this is a business, not a charity case. You keep it professional. Once the contract's up, it's up. There's no reason for us to keep you. I think we agree you work for us for this certain number of time. Between this time and that time, you fight these number of fights for us. Once the contract's finished, it's finished. Unfortunately, we part ways. We go separate ways. If we're going to renew the contracts, and we renew the contracts, that's fine. And she did make it public that she was going to be leaving the UFC. Excuse me, my back is killing me. That she was going to be leaving the UFC and she would be moving to Bare Knuckle fight, BKFC, Bare Knuckle FC. The F in the C, I'm not sure what that stands for. So again, guys, please correct me in the comment section below if you know what that is. Again, I'm learning about mixed martial arts all the time. But at the time, a lot of people, I think including her husband, of course, they're married, so he can't exactly tell. Not that because he's married, but no one can really tell her what to do, because she is her own independent entity and she has her own mind. But many people were against her moving to an organization like Bare Knuckle FC, and I was wondering, but why is that? What's so bad about that organization that she shouldn't move? And it's only when I did a podcast with my first kickboxing coach, who we had a bit of a falling out over the podcasting thing. But it was in that first podcast I did with him that I learned that actually what happens in the organization is in the title, bare knuckle fighting. You don't have any mitts or gloves. You just use your bare raw fists to fight. So many people are saying that, well, this is a really, really, big mistake for her career. And up until that point, until the point that I finally understood what happens in the organization, Bare Knuckle FC, I was all for her going. But then I kind of learned a bit more about what's happening in the organization, and now I understood why people were so against a girl like her, because she's a good-looking girl, very pretty, but at the same time, she not just that she's a good-looking girl on the outside, but she has a very nice personality, very humble, down-to-earth girl. Many people are against her, going that an organization like that, is she really going to fit in? I mean, the injuries are far worse, and I wrote down here in the script that if they don't use mitts or any sort of protection when they're fighting, though I understand it is a fight, it's combat sport, so you can't expect too much protection when you're fighting or when you're performing in the cage there, but that's like the equivalent to a street fight, because there's no, with the exception that you're going to be fighting in the cage I say street fight, but you're going to be fighting in the cage in a controlled environment, but I say street fight because there's no mitts, no gloves and protection for your hands. So of course the injuries, like say for your hands, it's going to be far, far worse. Now she, just towards the end of last year, I think in October it was, she was on a podcast called I can't remember what it was. I'll write it down here somewhere. But she was on a podcast whereby she was kind of explaining the reasons to why she made the move to Bare Knuckle FC. So on leaving the UFC, she had a lot of opportunities coming her way. A lot of other organizations were sending offers her way, sending opportunities her way. Bellator was one of them. One Championship was one of them. And Bare Knuckle was one of them. And I think she said that what appealed to her the most wasn't necessarily the money, but it was the organization. I think there must have been something they said or did, something that they offered to her that she liked, and maybe it was something that the other organizations probably weren't prepared to offer her. But that was the main reason as to why she moved to Bare Knuckle FC. And in the same podcast, she was talking with her coach and the guy that hosts the podcast. I think, one of the other reasons why she was making the changes, I think when she was at the UFC, she said that when she was fighting or coach or training sparring, she always had the tendency of injuring her arm, and it was the reason as to no reason, but it did affect her striking ability when she was training, sparring and performing, when she was competing. So I think she wants to maybe try something else, and Bare Knuckle probably did it for her. But it'll be interesting to see what her first match in the organization is like, because when I was told that this organization doesn't allow any sort of mitts or boxing gloves, it's just your bare fist, your bare raw fist. They used to fight, as well as just the other things they allow in that organization. I was really taken aback, and I was thinking, is someone, a beautiful, pretty young lady like herself, is she really gonna fit into that sort of organization? But let's wait and see what happens. Again, when she was making the move, I was all for it. Even after learning what the other organization was about, now it's more or less like all the best to her. I hope she does well, because she's a nice girl, and she, in the past, she was bullied a lot. She suffered a lot. It's one of the reasons why she got into combat sports, into mixed martial arts. So I'm happy for her, but it'll be interesting to see how her debut fight pans out and what happens. Right, so now, God, I'll get a proper chair to these podcasts. Even though it's my couch, it's killing my back. Sorry, guys. So recently, and this is recently, my friend Charlie sent me this story on Instagram, and I checked out the story. It's from MIKEPERRY, and in the video, basically it's a short story on Instagram, and it shows MIKEPERRY. He's lying on the floor, he's filming himself, and he's lying in a puddle of what looks like his own blood. And I think at some point in the video, he kind of shows his leg. I'm not sure which part of the body it is that he got injured where he was injured, but I think he shows his ankle, and it looks like it's looks like it is injured. But at the same time, he also, he also shows some broken glass, a window that has its glass broken. And then in the next, I think some people did think it was a hoax or a joke. The person who uploaded the video there were some people who uploaded it to YouTube as part of the daily mixed martial arts news of what's going on in MMA and in the combat sports world. They uploaded it to YouTube, and they said that initially was thought that this is just a hoax, it was a joke. But later on, I think MIKEPERRY uploaded another video of himself in hospital where he was actually receiving treatment on wherever the injury was. And when I saw, I was like, for a second I was like in shock, thinking, God, what the hell's happened here? But no one else was around, and when he was lying there on that floor in that corridor by that broken window in a puddle of his own, what looks like his own blood, no one else was there, no one else was around. And for a second I thought, well, what's he got himself into now? Because this looks pretty serious. And what really got me was that this guy's about to be a father. He's about to be a dad now. His girlfriend, or is it his fiance, she's pregnant with his first child, their first child. So I would have thought that really he would have, after missing weight at UFC, what was it, at the, sorry guys, at UFC, is it UFC, no, I wrote this down, okay, I messed it up, but after missing weight at, I think at his last fight, and the incident he had at the restaurant, sometime in the middle of or earlier, in the early stages of 2020, in the early stages of last year, you'd have thought that really now he's gonna have a big responsibility coming his way. You would have thought that he'd really cleaned up his acts and really straightened himself out, But there are still some issues that he's going through. Again, I don't know what happened in that video, what happened in that incident. Was someone there, and was it just after the fight had happened? Again, he's not said anything about that. But on Twitter he posted some really angry statements, saying to his fans, I'm not free, I don't have time, I don't want to talk, don't care what you have to say, I'm not taking a picture, don't ask how I'm doing, please leave me alone. Unless you want to give me money, then just give it to me, and then you can ask a question. And he went on further to say, you're rude as fuck, I'm just a messenger, and you think you deserve something for watching fights, or you think you know how a fighter should act when you never steps in the ring. Just remember, none of you would talk that shit man to man. Your place is on Twitter. I'm done talking, the public has been warned. So, gauging from that, probably in private, a lot of people have been saying a lot of things, sending him DMs on Instagram, on Facebook, probably leaving nasty comments on his pictures on Instagram, stuff like that, and it's really getting to him. But again, where this incident's concerned, I just don't know. No one knows what was really happened. Only he knows, and if anyone else was involved, they know. But me personally, I do hope that he does sort himself out and he does straighten things out, because he's about to become a father soon, and it wouldn't be fair on his child if he's, if things are still, if he's still misbehaving, if all this rubbish and crap is happening in his life while he has a big responsibility. Okay, okay, now I see where I wrote it down. Yeah, he missed weight at UFC 255. And in leading up to that fight, I have to say that he did post pictures on social media, on Instagram, whereby he is clearly stuffing his face with junk food and all sorts of crap. And so obviously that's not going to help him make weight. So, last thing I'm going to talk about really is ISRAELADESANYA versus Jan. This is a Polish name. Jan, I hope I pronounced it correctly. If I don't, guys who are watching this on YouTube, please correct me in the comment section. Jan Blachowicz. Now that fight is going to take place at UFC 259, and I think because of this fight, ISRAELADESANYA is going to move up a few steps up into the light heavyweight division. So it'll be an interesting fight to see. Even though Israel's going to add some weight on to be classed as part of that division. Overall, he still has an athletic physique, and he has an agile sort of physique about him. So one of the fighters who she's a former strawweight champion, and she's a close friend of the of Adesanya's opponent. Her name's Joanna. God, another. Her name's Joanna Jedrzejczyk. God, I can't pronounce her name. Again, guys, if I made it wrong, correct in the comment section on YouTube. Now, she's a good friend of Jan, but I think she was being very honest with her. But when she said that Israel has, despite Jan having more size and more power, he's stronger. I think Israel will have the advantage because he's going to be much more agile, much more quick, and he'll be able to move quickly on his feet. Probably won't get too tired as Jan because he's carrying a lot of power, and that potentially will slow him down. Now, she points out that Israel will be a unique challenge for Jan. So it'll be interesting to see how that does pan out. Excuse me. So, So guys, I'm gonna wrap up the podcast. There's not much else I've got to say. Not many fights happened between now, or at least fights that I looked at and watched between now and the last fight, UFC Vegas 17, whereby Wonderboy impressed everybody with his moves and how he beat his opponent, Jeff Neal. So not many fights have happened. So just my brief sense on just the news and the what's been happening within the communities since then of the holiday period. But someone did make a suggestion to me, Charlie, and it's actually good that he points it out, because I like my podcast to be, I wouldn't like to be biased and one-sided, and so far my first 3 episodes have been that way. So I'm going to be looking at other fights as well from other organizations. One Championship is one of them, because on Instagram, I do follow their content. They do have some really good fights that they host there. Some of their athletes have got some really good moves, spinning kicks and spinning elbows, and where they knock out their opponents just within seconds. It is unbelievable. So I'm going to be doing podcasts on other happenings and other things that are happening in MMA and beyond that in the combat sports world. So I like to ask in this podcast, do you think it's a good idea, or should I just stick to the UFC and some Bellator content? Just because if, how do I say this, MMA, people love this sport so much. Over here in the UK and the US, in the western part of the world, people, there's so much into the sport. I think on one podcast I did hear that people love the sport so much, and they love the organization, the UFC, so much, and that is such a household name, especially in the United States, that they think the brand UFC itself is the name of the sport, but actually it's not. The name of the sport is mixed martial arts, not UFC, mixed martial arts. So that's how well known the UFC is known over here in countries like the UK, the US, Canada, but of course, especially in the USA. But there are other organizations out there, some which aren't around anymore, such as Strikeforce. They were swallowed up by the UFC, I think around in 2008, or was it 2010 or so, around then. But there are other organizations, Bellator, One Championship, Bare Knuckle Fighting, that I've just been talking about in regards to Paige Vanzant. So now I like my podcast to be about MMA and combat sports, but I like it to be very neutral. Of course, I give my opinion, and I like to give like a broad spectrum of what's happening in the sport as a whole, not just what's been going on in the UFC and other athletes who are related, who are tied to the organization. But guys, again, what do you guys think? Should I just keep it to the UFC, or should I talk about basically everything in mixed martial arts and the combat sporting world as a whole? But guys, I'm going to wrap that up. My back is killing me. I'm going to have to really try and source out a new chair to do these podcasts on, so I can lean back and just stare into the camera and speak to the microphone with ease. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy that, please don't forget to leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, and if you enjoy my content, please don't forget to please do subscribe. Please do subscribe, and don't forget to leave a like. You can catch me on Instagram, and my name on Instagram is Ojiako1. On Facebook, Twitter, and Parler, my name is Ojiako. You can also catch my podcast on Spotify, Podchaser, Soundcloud, Podbean, Player FM, Stitcher. I'm also now on Google Podcasts. I'm trying to sort out the podcast for Apple iTunes, because for some reason there's so much encryption on that. It seems almost impossible to get my podcast on there. Google Podcasts, last my checks, I think there was a bit of an issue there, but I think they sent me an email saying it's been sorted, but my podcast is now live on Google Podcasts, so I'll check and see if it's actually live. But guys, if you watched to the end, thank you for listening. Thank you.